basic question. I apologize for insulting the intelligence of the group, but
No, no,
No, it's a good
no.
question.
It's just too hard to answer. It's such a we
where
all
do
have
I,
different opinions.
yeah, where
Yeah.
do I start is where,
What I do, I have a C Star S50, and I bring the FITS file into Graxpert, which is a free program. Um, and I remove the gradient. And with the C Star, I don't use the noise reduction in C Star because I think it's kind of heavy-handed and it really softens the image too much. So I basically just I open the image up, I crop a little bit, I remove the background, and I use the denoise feature in Graxpert. And actually, it's kind of an AI thing, but I slam it all the way over to make it 1.0, and that seems to be good for the C Star. I never would do that with normal image. With the C Star, it seems to work pretty good. So once you get that done, you can bring it into a program called Siril, Siril. And from there, you can do a photometric color calibration to kind of get yourself, on some kind of footing with the true colors. And then depending on the object, if it's a star field or a globular cluster, I just go in and I do a generalized hyperbolic stretch. Basically, it's a stretching function. That's what I do. You can get more involved in, if like nebulas and galaxies, you can remove the stars and put them back in later and things like that. But the last thing I do is typically I remove any green noise after I've done all that. And with the C star, um, that's actually pretty quick. Once you've done it a few times, it actually goes real quick because the Grasberg part takes about a minute, literally, because you're only doing like a click button, and then saving. And the serial, um, it takes a little longer with the when you're stretching, but the stretching part's the slow part, but the rest of it's pretty straightforward. Um, but those two programs, Grassbert and Cyril, is what I use on the C Star.
I dropped the
thank you.
links in the chat for you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Actually, I have one example that I took that I had in my file here to potentially show tonight. I took a picture at the Valley Forge Star Party, only 18 and a half minutes, and it's an easy target. It was M13, but it came out surprisingly well for a bright site and very little integration time. But following those procedures I just talked about, I created a final image, and it's a fairly straightforward. But you can start with actually. Now this is really I wouldn't do this normally, and I'll probably get shot for saying this. But if you want to do it really, really down and dirty before you get too carried away you know, with things. That's kind of the first step. You can take the JPEG. Uh-oh, there it is right there. Take the JPEG versus the FITS file. Bring that into Grasper. Do the same thing. Remove the background, denoise it, and when you go into Serial, all you have to do is go into the histogram, do a slight tweak as far as like the what is the dark, what's dark, and what's a little more in the mid range. Remove the green and save it. It takes literally 3 minutes, the whole thing's done. But it's kind of like a way of getting started in those programs because there's very few steps there you're doing. Um, I
Great
was doing it.
suggestion. Thank you.
And for your other question, Tad, in terms of where do you go to ask questions and stuff, this group is a good place. And also there's an astrophotography forum for discussions. If you go onto the website, if it's stuff gets too technical, it's probably better to leave it out of the groups.io, the main source of the emails. But there's also an astrophotography forum email kind of mechanism. If you go to the DVAA website under forums, there's two of them. I think one's astrophotography. I'm not even sure what the other one is offhand, but you can ask questions there, and myself or one of the other Tom or Joe or John and anyone can really answer those questions.
Thank you.
kind of keep you pointed in the right direction. But you're not alone here, because there are a lot of people on the call tonight, and in general on the call are kind of not too long ago where you were. They got a C star, they got a dwarf lab, started playing around with it, and then started to take things to the next level by doing their own processing, and then by taking it further. The nice thing with the processing is that it's very scalable, and it's also very applicable. The same approaches are very applicable regardless of your imaging setup generally speaking. So stuff that you're going to process with that comes out of a C star is handled, almost the same way as if you're doing it using a dedicated refractor or a Schmidt-Cassegrain or whatever mechanism, a Newtonian. Where you start to get differences are like in deep sky versus planetary. Those are very different processing methodologies to get most detail out of the two different classes of objects.
Thanks a lot, everyone.
You're welcome. So let me get started with the regular meeting at this point. And again, questions and answers Q&A is also encouraged during the regular session, whether we're doing a show and tell, if questions come up about that, or if people are showing something an image that they took that they have a question about. Keep in mind that that's really the point of this meeting is for us all to learn from one another and to help solve each other's problems, because everyone knows different parts of things, but this is a deep topic, and you'd be hard pressed. I think anyone would be hard pressed, even experts, to say that they know everything they need to know about this. Even Adam Block, I doubt, would say something like that, or Jerry Rodriguez, or people that have been doing it for 40 years. So I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to try to do this in a little more intelligent way this time by moving that out of the way first. So I'm going to share that. And then what you should see now is a desktop with a PowerPoint like swirling around.
You did it.
And it didn't do it. Hold on.
Nice background.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to move it here. For some reason, it always wants to do it on the other screen. So hold on. I still haven't figured that out, John. Windows thinks this is screen one, that's screen two, and Zoom thinks they're the opposite. So I'm gonna. It's interesting.
I start counting at screen 0.
And now I can't see that. Sorry. It always wants to mess with my head because it always does the opposite of where it is on one of the applications.
And just so folks know, we are live on YouTube right now too.
Okay. So if I do this, no, it's still not doing it. I'm not sure why it's messing up tonight. And I don't even see what you're seeing anymore. So you're seeing that. Okay.
We were seeing the PowerPoint.
So now you're seeing it.
Guys.
Okay.
There you go.
Now you're seeing it. It's on the wrong screen, but that's okay. I'll be looking at the camera here. So, okay, so tonight's meeting, we're going to if there are any new people that we haven't already talked about or haven't introduced themselves, please, when I'm finished this slide, please introduce yourself. and just give us a quick little background about your sort of level of experience, things like that, equipment you're using. Then after that, we're going to do a short presentation. I realized last week or last month, I mean, when I did the that little M71 processing tutorial, that it probably wouldn't hurt to have just a little more information or a little more of an explanation about histogram and curves, sort of basic processing tools. And obviously there are more fancy processing tools like the generalized hyperbolic stretch, even like the hyperbolic sine, really hyperbolic arc sine stretching that's been used for years. But when you really get back to basics, the histogram and curves can pretty much do anything you need, especially if you're just getting started. And even with those other tools, they're still handy. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about those. I'd also like to then open up the floor to anyone as far as if they have any recently processed images or any new equipment or techniques that they'd like to discuss or share with the group. And then if time permits, we'll just open it up to a general Q&A session. So that's for tonight. Next month, I'd like everyone to tune in, plus even more people, because let me see if I can do that. There you go. Because we're going to have a special presentation by Prasad Agrahar. He's going to be talking about his do-it-yourself spectroheliograph that he's built. He had done a version 1 about, I guess, maybe a little more than a year ago. And then back in the springtime frame, he built a bigger one. And this is a picture of his second version of this. Back in July, he wrote that a few months earlier, he had begun building.
Yeah.
What's that? Oh, sorry. You guys can see that, right?
Yeah, you're doing great. That was Barb. Hi, Barb.
Hi, Barb. So he talks about what he used to build that back then, and then as people see, he's been posting some really excellent pictures of the. This is one from just a few days ago. This is in H alpha, the sun in H alpha, and then the H beta image next to it. So Prasad's going to go through what motivated him to do this project, what kind of things he learned along the way, pitfalls that he had to overcome, and then also talk about the software that's used for capturing these images and then processing them. And the way it's done, it's sort of done one line at a time. So this system scans the sun at whatever wavelength you want to look at it at based on the diffraction grading and the spectra, the sort of expanded spectra of the sun. And then it combines those images or combines those lines of data into an image at that particular frequency. So it's a really fascinating technique. And it's also a very versatile technique because he can really look at it in whatever wavelength he wants. So he's routinely done, the H alpha, H beta, calcium images, things of that sort. So that's going to be an exciting presentation. So I encourage everyone to join in on that.
Gary, what was the focal length of that lens on that gizmo?
I'm not sure what the
Huh.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the overall how you would think of the overall focal length, because it's taking a spectra. Like if you look at a prism, the rainbow it makes is going to be x wide. This is taking that rainbow and stretching it, hundreds of times, maybe even more. I'm not really sure. He'll explain that, obviously. And then you can sort of point the camera. I think there's a little mirror inside that can pick off one of those lines, basically, one of those frequency lines.
It looks like there's two lenses. There's f-stop
This is
rings on
camera.
both of them.
The red thing's the camera. There's a lens here, but there's also lenses inside.
Huh.
We're not looking at the inside of this. So there's mirrors, there's lenses inside. There's a diffraction grating. There's a real narrow slit right over here to just cause a line of light. He'll go into that. We're not
Yeah.
really going to
Yeah.
be talking about this because it's not my area of expertise
Yeah.
by a long.
Basically, though, it is a spectroscope that has a slit on both ends, has the initial slit at top where the light passes through, hits a collimator lens to a diffraction grating. He can tilt the grating, which moves the part of the spectrum that passes through another lens to get a focus and go through us. The second slit is what isolates what wavelengths he's looking at. So, but he can tilt the grating to get anywhere in the visible spectrum.
Thanks, Tom. So that's that. I'm going to get that out of the way. And then we're going to try this because this is going to should open up on the other screen. Maybe. Yeah, it worked. Okay. Okay, so for tonight, to get things started, I'm going to do a quick talk about histograms and curves. And this is really meant to be an overview. This is a back to basics kind of thing, but I've always found that even if you're experienced at stuff, it doesn't hurt a lot of times to get back to basics. So tonight we're going to talk about what are the histogram and curves transformation tools used for astro image processing. And the histogram in Photoshop, when I started out, I was using an early version. In fact, it was actually a beta version of Photoshop when I first got involved in this. It's called Levels. That histogram tool is called Levels tool. And from what I was able to poke around with Siril, John, that's called the mid-tone transfer function transformation tool, which is quite a mouthful. But MTF transformation tool sounds a lot more palatable. So those are all sort of the same tool. They have the same basic controls, different dialogues, but same basic tool. I'm going to do a quick demonstration of the curves and histogram in PixInsight. I'm going to show some screen captures from Photoshop just as an introduction to give you an idea of what a histogram is really representing, and then just briefly introduce a couple other tools for stretching image data. So what is a histogram? And you have to say in a particular context, because in general, a histogram is a graph used to show a frequency distribution of a continuous set of data. If you looked at just the general definition of a histogram, that's what it is. If you look at it in terms of astrophotography, we're looking at really brightness levels. So in the context of astrophotography, it's a graph used to show the distribution of the frequency of brightness values for an ordered set of data. And that by frequency, I don't mean like cycles per second, like hertz. It's how many of them there are. So from a nomenclature standpoint, the x-axis is the brightness, and that can be either thought of as the level of or the value. If you're looking at sort of general light theory, the value is really that brightness. darker values are represented on the left, lighter values are represented on the right side of that graph. And the x-axis is sometimes normalized from 0 to 1, with 0 being black, 1 being white. That's how PixInsight does it. Photoshop does it as from 0 to 255, where 0 is black, 255 is the brightest value that an 8-bit 8-bit value can make. I'm not sure how to say that. An 8-bit digit, whatever, even though it's not really a digit.
Hey, Gary,
Yes.
quick question. In these terms, when you say normalized from 0 to 1, what is normalized in this context? What does it mean?
In that context, from on the x-axis, so let's say I were to change, and this will make more sense when we get into the slides, but just to answer the question, if I were to let's say I were to change the dynamic range, so you can also in a histogram, like in Photoshop, the Photoshop histogram has output values, and I have a slide on this, and that'll actually allow you to change the dynamic range. So if you were to map what was originally black, like 0 to like 35 to some gray value, and then you were to map white, which is say 255 in Photoshop or 1 in PixInsight to like 200, and then perform that transformation. If you open that image up again, that transformed image again, it would still show in Photoshop 0 to 255 and in PixInsight 0 to 1. So it would take whatever new range it is and it would make it back to 0 to 1 or 0 to 255.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, because it's still trying to represent black as being 0 and white as being whatever the biggest value is. If it's like a 16-bit value, right, it would be, 65,535, or in PixInsight,
Yeah.
1 for white.
I'm on a
The
Fine.
y-axis is the frequency, which in
Yes.
this context
yeah.
is how many times a particular value occurs in that image. And the y-axis, I put this note in here because the behavior depends on the tool. And the y-axis is often auto-scaled, so you can kind of see that distribution more easily to a certain extent. There's a certain point where it doesn't auto-scale anymore, because then you would kind of lose the feedback that you're getting. So the reason for doing or using a histogram as a basic tool is it allows you to easily visualize the shape of that distribution. And that visualization helps with determining how to manipulate that distribution. When you're trying to stretch the data, you want to know kind of how much do I need to push it in order for that to happen. So a histogram transformation tool, or levels, or the midpoint transfer function, is really a simple method for manipulating that distribution of those brightness values. And in the context of astroimaging, that's called stretching the data. There's 3 basic controls for changing. There's the black point control, the midpoint, and the white point. And in reality, you only use 2 of those. You'd be hard pressed to come up with a reason why you'd want to bring the white point down and possibly clip your bright data. Because in astrophotography, clipping kind of occurs. There's a tendency for things to clip as you stretch them. So you're always trying to avoid clipping if you can, to a certain extent. So moving that white point to make clipping worse is I mean, it's not something that is generally done or done at all. Also, there's another set of controls where you can select what color channels. Is it RGB data that you're stretching? Are you just moving the R channel, the green channel, the blue channel? So there's those basic controls. So I took Photoshop. This is a screenshot from Photoshop. I made an image, and I just filled it with about 50% gray, just middle gray. So this is an image where every data value is the same. I took a paint bucket and I poured it into a space. And then I pulled up the histogram tool for that. And you can see there's a single value and there's a bunch of it. It's like everything is there. I'm going to now do the same thing, but I'm going to use a lighter shade of gray. And then I'm going to look at the histogram of that. And you can see that there's some other value somewhere in between 0 and 255, because that's how Photoshop does it. It represents it as a 8-bit data. And you can see the output has a scale too, from 0 to 255. So that's really sort of the dynamic range of the output, and we're going to leave that alone. I'll show how that works later. This gets back to a question you were asking, Steve. So that value is there. Now, if I take an area and I put a bright white box in there, a pure black box in there, and then two values of gray, like a light gray and a dark gray, you can see here that the lighter gray still has the most area that's represented, and that's this big line here. So that's saying that this image has the most data values of that color, of that gray, or level, I should say, that intensity. There's the highest number of that intensity in this image. That's this line here. You can see the white is a little box, and you can see a little white line, a little black line here. That's how many of those white values are in that image. The medium gray, or I should say the dark gray, is this line here. And then the black box is this line here. So what that's showing you is how many times a certain value appears in the image. That's fundamentally what in this context, that's what a histogram is showing. Does this make sense? Okay.
Yes.
So now if we look at this midpoint control, so I'm going to take a medium gray box, you can see the line here, and I'm going to shift the midpoint control to the darker part of the range. This will actually be easier to see in PixInsight and like Siril, because they actually show you the shape of the transfer curve, that midpoint transfer curve. But just in terms of what it's doing, if I took the midpoint control, which in Photoshop defaults to 1, and I pull it to the left, that actually increases its value. It's kind of like the gamma. If you think of sort of the gamma in photography, that's kind of how Photoshop represents it, because it was originally a tool that was meant for photographic image processing, not so much astronomical image processing. If you bring it down towards the dark range, it makes the image appear lighter, because you're basically stretching the information that's in the lower part of the range, that's in the darker part of the range, and pushing it up. And again, you'll see that a little more clearly when I actually demo it in PixInsight. Contrarily, if you on the contrary, if you move the slider up to the brighter values, it effectively makes the midpoint here now, which makes that was once light darker, because it's saying the middle of that range is now going to be underneath me, meaning darker. So fundamental controls is that the fundamental control is really that midpoint. That's the thing you're adjusting when you use this tool more than any other adjustment. For a histogram, you tend to adjust the midpoint, and then you might want to adjust the black point if you have too much, basically too much information that's not useful information in the real dark side, on the real dark end of the scale.
So, Gary,
Yes.
in this scenario that you're showing here, if you moved the white point all the way at the right, moved it to the left, what happens?
You would clip the information. I'll show you that when we actually
Okay.
pull up the thing. Actually, it's probably right here. Let me see if this comes up on the same.
You don't have to go out of step. I'll wait.
Okay, I'll show that. I'll show that in a bit.
Yeah.
So then, what are the output levels? So the other thing, and I threw this in for completeness sake, even though it's not something that is common in terms of the astrophotography processing tools like PixInsight and Siril. It is in Photoshop, and I put it in more for completeness. The other thing a histogram can do is adjust your dynamic range. So I have an image here where the output sliders are 0 and 255. If I pull those sliders in, the black outputs value in to 74 and the white point to 155, you can see what it did to that image. It took black and it now mapped the 0 to 74. So it made it a dark gray. It took the white, this is the same white box as that. It took the white and it mapped that to a middle gray. That gray is not that different than the gray that's here. And if you take that one more step, I zoomed in on these. So I took the same full scale image. I took the same full scale image. You can see the black box represented in that line, the dark gray, that lighter gray, and then the white. And then I moved the black output level and the white output level out. I then performed that operation, and then I opened up that same image again. This is the same image as that, but now with the refreshed levels or histogram. And this is what I was saying, Steve. So that 0 to 255 in this case, or 0 to 1 in the PixInsight case, is still the full scale of data values represented. And the output now is still 0 to 255. This is a fresh opening of the levels on that image. But this isn't really black anymore, and that's not really white anymore. That black is now here at 31, and that white is now at 205 here. That's not something you typically do with astro image processing. You want your output range to be the full range, with the exception of like adjusting your black point, say. So if you look at Siril's midtone transfer function transformation tool, it actually shows those same 3 sliders. You have your white point, your midtone, and your black point. And then you have a line here, which is actually the transfer function. So if you were to pull this slider, the midtone slider, to the left, it would cause an arc in that. And we'll see that in a second in PixInsight.
Hey, Gary.
Yes.
At least I'm not seeing your cursor when you're pointing things out. I don't know.
Oh, I'm sorry. Here it is here.
Oh, I see it now.
Yeah, sorry. I was pointing to the wrong screen.
Question?
Sorry. Yes.
Could you go back one slide to the Photoshop? So the input levels that has the 3 boxes where it's 0 on the left, 255 on the right. What does that number in the middle represent? Because I would expect that to be 127.
Well, it's kind of again, Photoshop was originally designed for doing processing of pictures, not astrophotography. You're on vacation, you take a snapshot, and you want to do something with that. So in the photographic world, there's a thing called gamma, and the gamma is sort of the transition between, it's the curve that's between light and dark.
Oh, okay. So it's the shape of that transfer curve
It's the shape of that transfer curve, and when it's
represented in a single number.
when gamma is 1,
It's
it's a
linear.
neutral transfer curve. It means that whatever goes in comes out. So
Right.
0 going in comes out as 0. 127 goes in as 127, comes out
Okay.
as 27.
So it's not the value of the middle gray
No,
triangle, it's the gamma function.
it's the gamma function. And like a
That's
fairly
confusing.
standard gamma for photographs that are pleasing to the eye, it's kind of like between 2 and 2.2. Like a very common gamma is 2.2 if you were just saying what's a baseline gamma.
Right.
And
But
it
in
would
the
be pulling that control further to the left.
yeah, you had one with a 2.5 in there.
Yeah. Here it
There,
is.
that
All
one.
right. So that would be, if I had that 2.2, that would be a very standard gamma curve. And it would
Gotcha.
kind of look like an arc, kind of like that.
Okay.
So
But if
that's why the nomenclature is a little bit different.
Right. But if you drag that black triangle or the white triangle in the input levels up or down, the 0 and the 255 would actually change. But that middle box is always the gamma function.
Correct.
Okay. All right. I just assumed because it was right underneath the gray triangle that it represented the value of the gray triangle.
Yeah, it's confusing,
Okay.
but that is what it represents in Photoshop.
Right.
If you look at something like PixInsight, so PixInsight, this is 0. So the shadows, you can see here, the shadows are 0. The highlights are 1 because PixInsight normalizes it.
Can't see your cursor.
Here.
It's just very small.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it disappears if I think if I don't move it, it disappears.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah. So here's the white point, your mid-tone, and the black point. And you can see down here, there's numeric values for those in PixInsight. So shadows are 0, highlights are 1, mid-tones are
Midtones are
0.5,
half.
right?
Right. Okay. Thank you.
This is the input screen, or the input histogram. This is the output histogram. So for a mid-tone of 0.5 in PixInsight, which is normalized, and 1 in Photoshop, which is not normalized, it's just the values of the range, that's a straight line from 0 to whatever your max value is. If I look at this, all these controls here, the most important ones are your black point, your midpoint, and then what channels are you working on? If you were to take an image that was color calibrated, like you went through the spectrophotometric color calibration, then you would want to keep, unless you were doing some special adjustment for some reason, you would want to keep that RGB box highlighted, which is the default, because that'll move everything at the same time. If you've calibrated your information, your data on your stars, and then you're working from that at that point, then you would want to manipulate those channels as a whole, unless you were doing something special. So you can see here, that's highlighted, that's selected. And now I'm going to play with those values. If you were to look at something like the black point, adjusting the black point, you would take that left slider, and this is just an example. You would slide that to the right, meaning you want to make you want to cut off stuff that's down in this part of the curve, which is basically flat and black. If you pull that to the right, you can see what it did. It shifted the output to the left. It's basically offsetting that data.
Oh.
Okay. So now if you look at, and I might have to, let me see, I'm going to get out of this so I can open up PixInsight where I'm probably going to be looking at the other screen because right now, so I'm going to move PixInsight to here. Okay. So let's look at an image. This is an image. This is just a starless image of the North American Nebula of NGC 7000 that I shot. What was it, in 2023 or something like that? This was shot with a one-shot. This was taken with a one-shot color camera. I'll make it a little bigger. It's taken with a one-shot color camera. It's the gradient was corrected. It was color calibrated for the stars. Some blur exterminator was performed, and then I extracted the stars. This is actually using the StarNet free plugin for PixInsight, not Star Exterminator. So there's some residual stars because when I did this, I didn't mask those out. I would have, normally mask those out. In Star Exterminator, it kind of does a pretty good job of that to begin with. But ignoring some of this bleed from that really bright star there, if I look at this image, this is just stretched by the screen transfer function, which in Siril's called an auto stretch. So if I turn that off, if I turn off that screen auto stretch, that's what you see. So there's really not much there. All right, you can see a little bit of something, but not much. So I'm going to open up the histogram transformation tool, and I'm sorry, they keep opening up on my other desktop, because that's my normal desktop. So I'm going to reset that. I'm going to show the histogram. I'm going to show a preview. So I'm going to take, and right now you see nothing because it's black. It's a dark image. So I'm going to take the midpoint slider and I'm going to bring that down to somewhere. If I bring it all the way down, you can start to see that histogram's coming up a little bit, right? And you can see if I really want to go crazy, you can see that the image is in there, but that image is buried basically in the deep shadows, that information. And one thing you typically do with tools like this is you don't do too much in one shot. Theoretically, I could pull that all the way over and, say, okay, now I'm going to go to some other kind of stretching mechanism. But you generally don't do that because you can cause artifact. You can get things like posterization, where you have too big a gap between values, things of that sort. So I'm going to bring it down to here, somewhere, where I know it's going to have some effect, but I just might not be able to see it yet. And I'm going to apply that to that image. And you can see that the histogram now came up a little bit. I'm going to leave it where it is. I'm going to apply it again. And now you can see the histogram came up even further. And for this particular data set, which is just, I think it's like almost 7 hours worth of data, shot from my backyard. So not a dark sky site. So there's going to be a lot of background, sort of fogging and stuff like that, sort of sky fog. I'm going to do it a third time because typically I want to try to get that histogram somewhere in that 20-25% range. That might be, maybe was a little too much on that last one. And
So you don't reset in between each stretch, Gary?
I sometimes do if I'm doing the last stretch. Like if I back out of that, if I just do that second stretch, and let's say I don't want to go too far with that, you could just move that slider. You don't need to reset it and then start over.
Okay.
Gary, quick question. When
Yeah.
moving the middle slider to the left, is there kind of a ballpark place you should always start at? You know,
Kind of where I mean, it depends on the object, obviously. If I'm doing something like a globular cluster where I say I'm not extracting the stars, then you have a lot less latitude because you're gonna, if you're too aggressive, you're gonna start to really saturate a lot of stars, especially if it's a bright, if it's like M13 or something bright. That example I showed last time where it was M71, that's a much dimmer globular. And that one you could be a little more aggressive. The one thing you want to keep in mind with this is that you're not using this for your final stretching. This is just to get started because most of the other tools like general hyperbolic stretch, even curves or even the arc, the arc sine H stretch, they kind of assume that the data's been stretched a little bit already. They actually work better if you're doing a little bit of pre-stretching with the data. And that's where the histogram really comes in handy because it allows you to get your data within a more workable range for those other more advanced tools. So that's something to kind of keep in mind. That's how I sort of think about it. So if I were to do this let's say we were to reset this, I have 2 stretches into this, and now I'm going to do a third one. If I were to reset that, Steve, and then come over here, I'd probably have it kind of right around there. I'm not exactly sure what's going on up here. There's certainly, if I put the cursor on here, there's certainly no red that's anywhere near saturation. No values of red are near 1. So I could definitely go further, but I want to go further with more control. The thing about the histogram is it gets you in the ballpark, but it doesn't have a lot of control. It just has really that one slider you're playing with. Whereas the other tools have multiple levels of control, which allow you to better finesse the information out of it. So I'm going to do this as my third stretch. I'm going to turn off the preview because if I did a fourth stretch with that same setting, you could see that I'm like way over there. I'll turn off the preview, and that's kind of where we are. So if you zoom in on this and I put the cursor here, some of the brighter red is about halfway there. This guy is going to be saturated in all likelihood. Yeah, really, really close to saturation, 99%, 98%. I don't really care about that because that's really sort of left over just because I grabbed an old image before I had better technique and better tools. Not that StarNet is a bad tool. It's worked very, very well. One thing it doesn't handle well are really bright stars or really bright areas when it's doing the extraction. I think it thinks they're non-stellar and it's just a bright feature in your image. So So that's kind of the basics of the histogram transformation. So if I go back to this, first of all, are there any questions, any other questions on the histogram? Okay, so curves. What is curves transformation tool? So the curves transformation tool is a very flexible way, versatile way for adjusting the brightness and contrast of an image by drawing sort of a user-defined curve of those intensity values. And then the function, the transformation, or the transfer function actually interpolates the data set, the actual data set, to make it match that curve that you drew. And you can put it really as many points as you want on a curve transformation, and we're going to demonstrate that. You can really finesse details out of it. We're going to go back to that same image, and then I'll show you what that means. Some controls are dependent upon the tool you're using. Like, for instance, PixInsight also allows you to do saturation, chrominance. Siril has additional tools that, or additional things that you can apply curves to. The Photoshop version is very basic. It's just the RGB data. It's not doing any other type of parameters that describe the image. So and oh, this is what I was saying before. The curves transformation tool is best used on an image that's already been stretched to some extent. That's true for those other tools too. It allows you to have more precise control when you're working with data that's already been that little narrow spike that's in almost the black is now some kind of a reasonable looking curve. So if I look at Photoshop again, just a basic function with curves is increasing contrast. So if I look at that same image, and it might be a little hard to tell, I'll put the cursor in the right spot. If I'm looking at that same image, there's that middle gray, or the darker gray, the middle gray, black, and then white. And they're a little hard to tell, but if I pull down, if I put a point on that on that straight line and pull it down a little bit, and then I put another one on the whiter side of that line and I pull it up a little bit, what it does is it makes the input value now, so for like an input value that's say 25% of the way up, now it comes out at like 15% of the way up, or 20% of the way up. So it makes the darks a little darker, and it makes the lights a little lighter, which is really the definition of contrast. So I'm actually creating a very shallow S-curve, which is effectively changing the contrast of that image. And we're going to see this in the PixInsight demo. If you look at the Siril curves transformation tool, very, very similar thing. And I may have misspoken, John. You probably need to correct me here. I said that the Siril curves tool allows things other than just the values to be tweaked, but that might not be true. I know with the GHS it does, but with curves, I'm not seeing a control for that.
Right. I usually use the GHS, so
Yeah.
I'm in there now. I'll poke at it.
Yeah, I think it just allows you to do linear or this cubic spline when you're doing the curves in Siril. But GHS allows you to apply it to other things.
Yeah, that's correct. I'm checking it now. There's only those two.
Yeah. So now I'm going to look at that. If I look at that PixInsight curves, I'm on RGB because this is calibrated data. I want to keep everything kind of relative to one another, each of the individual channels. This is one thing that for PixInsight users, and I'm not sure why it does this, but sometimes when you are changing other controls, if you're doing saturation or like hue or chrominance or something like that, sometimes it changes this from like edit the point to like just delete a point or add a point. So for PixInsight users, if it's behaving funny, if your tool's behaving funny, make sure that this box is selected, which is the, edit a point, not just add it or subtract it. So if we go back to, oh, sorry, yeah, one more thing. So then in PixInsight, there's also a curve that you could do, and I just have one point to find just to illustrate a slight, say, general increase in saturation of the whole image. You can selectively color correct saturation in PixInsight also, and I'm sure Siril does something similar. But if you wanted to just do just a general little boost of saturation, you can hit this saturation button and then just slightly pull that up. And I'll show you that now. So I'm going to get out of this. We should still be in PixInsight. I'll close that for now. Yeah. So here's that image. I'll make it bigger. Here's that image with just a histogram stretch. And what I did next on this was the generalized hyperbolic stretch, but we're not going to do that. We're going to go to curves. Since we're talking about curves, we're going to go to curves. So
what you're doing right now is that making that bright star brighter?
Right now, it should be this. It should be the same. Right now, I have just a straight line. I'm going to apply the histogram, and I'm going to put a preview window up. So right now, if I turn the preview on and off, you can't see any difference in that image. If I were to drop a point here and pull that way up, let me put the preview back on. You can see what's happening. It's making that whole thing bright. This would be very similar to if you adjusted the midpoint in your histogram.
That's what I was wondering.
It'd be a very, very similar thing to introduce. Yet I can go like this, I can go like that, I could go like that, right? I could really mess it up. Let's say I reset it, and then I just want to stretch this area here. So what you can do is you can drop a, if you click the cursor on your image, see those little RGB vertical lines dancing around on this graph?
Yeah.
You guys see that?
Yeah.
That's showing me where the data falls in that range where that cursor is. So let's say I want to do something with this bright stuff here. Well, that bright stuff's not really that bright. It's sort of in this region. If I look at dark stuff, dark's not really that dark. It's somewhere in this region. So what you can do is I can drop an anchor. I'm going to drop a point here. And a lot of times I'll put a second point right next to it, which kind of locks. It kind of locks that region underneath it. So for instance, if I put a point here and pull that, you can see that bottom doesn't change. This line here is not changing. If I lose one of those points, see how it kind of creates a sort of inflection point about that one point? If I pull up the bright, the dark's getting darker. So if you want to protect an area, I'm going to reset it, start over. If you want to protect an area, if I want to protect my darks for now, my like blacks, you can kind of drop 2 points in. If I wanted to protect this guy, this bright star, or that bright blob, you can see that's way up there, right? That's way at the very, very top. Or if I want to protect the halo around it, look how quickly the halo drops off, where that data is. You could put a couple points here too. Now, this see that? That's what I mean. Sometimes that changes to that when you click on there.
That could explain a lot of things. I'm
So I'm
trying
going
to
to put
grasp everything here.
I'm going to put 2 points here, and if I pull this way, way up, you can see I'm actually creating a donut now because that center hasn't changed. So you can see it's brighter around the halo, then it dips down, and then the center is about the same.
I've seen that a lot in fooling around. I thought it was the optics.
No. No, you're actually creating that as an artifact by kind of going too far with that control. So let's go back to that full image. So now I have my top my really bright thing there, whatever that is, protected, and I have this really dark stuff here. It's not that dark, protected. So we saw that this image here, this area here was more like in that. So let's say we want to pull that up. I want to start to bring up that stuff there. And let's say that's all I want to do. I'm going to just throw a couple points there just to illustrate something. So if I pull that way, way up, you can see it becoming posterized. Because now I'm creating a void. I have darker stuff that's getting really light, but the lighter stuff is darker relative to that. And you're kind of stretching those histogram values, and you wind up creating a really bad looking image. I'm going to lose these. So if you want to start to control an image and tweak it, don't be afraid to pull that slider way up to just kind of see what it's affecting, or drop 2 points there to isolate that and see what it's affecting. So that's actually affecting that part of that data, that kind of middle. The really bright stuff here is still sort of held tight by those 2 data points, and they're just temporary. I'm going to lose those. But just to kind of see what's going on. You can see the area that's getting dark. You can see the area that's getting light. And you can see the area that's not being affected. So let's say I want to pull those up. I'm going to lose these 2 points. And I lose them in PixInsight by just right-clicking on them. And let's say I want to pull up a little more in that area. Now you can see here, see what's being affected there? See that stuff lighting up?
Yep.
You would never do it this much. I'm just doing it just to show you. If I move that over, keep that same value, you can see exactly where that information is in that curve. So let's say I want to pull that up just a tiny bit. I can do that. And sometimes you might want to even lose that sort of middle point, because you want to make sure this curve's fairly smooth, and you don't want to do too much in one operation. So if I go preview on, preview off, I've pulled it up a little bit. If I want to increase the contrast a little, I can just delete that point and let that tail kind of go down a little. Sometimes you can get away with just, a couple points, which is fairly typical. So I'm going to pull that up just a little bit. And then say we apply that. Now, if I look at that compared to what I did with the GHS, it's not that different. It's fairly comparable. This was going from histogram transformation right to generalized hyperbolic stretch. And that's typically what I do, actually. I oftentimes use the curve transformation after I do the GHS to kind of pull out a little more detail. So
Yeah, I
here,
see that. That's opposite of what I've been doing.
you've been doing curves and then GHS, or?
Yes.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that, Steve. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just some of it depends on the image, what you're working with.
Yep.
I have more recently been, and in the past, before GHS was even available, and the ArcSine H, all you had was curves and a histogram. So you kind of went back and forth between the two. You would use your histogram to get started. You would do the curves to stretch your data. Then you would go back to histogram, reset your black point. Then you would go back to curves and you would do another stretch. So you would just bounce back and forth like 5, 6, 7 times sometimes. And then you
Okay.
would have a finished picture. So if I look at, say, GHS in this case, this is what I did for that image. This is the GHS I used. And it would have been on that previous image.
So I've had trouble using this, so I'm curious to see what you do here.
Let me come back to that because I'm going to I'm going to open up that previous image again. Assuming I can get to let me see if I can get to my thing. Hold on. I'm going to just drop that image back in. So this was that was just a histogram transfer. May keep that there. So if I wanted to go from this and do some final tweaking on that, I could pull up curves again, and I'll open the preview window, and you can see it's pulling up the middle a tiny bit. It's keeping the top the same, keeping the bottom the same, and this you could probably even lose that point. No, actually, that actually is helping the contrast a little. So let me reset that to just show you. Let's say I wanted to just increase contrast on this. Right now the black point's high. So typically what I would do is I would adjust the black point before doing this, but just for argument's sake, I'm going to just increase the contrast a little by placing 2 control points. And you can even adjust where that contrast, where the break point in that contrast is, by just staying the same vertical amount, the same intensity amount, and moving that over a little bit. So now if I look at that's before, after. So let's say we apply that. That's just a slight contrast tweak. Oops, sorry. So let's apply that. And then I'm going to reset that. And let's say you wanted to increase saturation a little bit. I can go to the saturation slider and pull that up. If you go too far, then it looks like hell. Now, I typically don't use this for saturation. I do sometimes. Sometimes I apply, I extract a luminance layer and then recombine that with a slight amount of saturation on that layer. But just as an example, and we can even apply that. And then let's say I want to adjust that black point. I'm going to bring up the histogram. I'm going to bring up the preview window. And you can see I have a lot of dark there. That's not very useful information, say. You can zoom in on this stuff too.
How are you doing that?
I'm just moving the little wheel on the cursor, but you can do it through this through these controls. That's 1-to-1. So I'm just putting the cursor somewhere where I want to zoom and then just pulling the little wheel on the mouse towards me. And you can see this is pretty much yeah, so there's not much there. So I'm going to bring the black point over. I don't want to go too far. You don't want to get too far like this because here's a great illustration. So let's just see what gets cut out. So I'm going to just keep moving the black point over. And right now, almost that whole curve is gone. If you look at the output, there's almost nothing there except this tail. And look how much information is in that tail.
Yep.
So if you're going to do, typically you'll get to a point, then you'll look at it and say, I can get a little more out of that. So that's why I tend to not bring the black point up too far, too fast, because there is some information there that may get eked out, like in this, if I go down into these areas. There is information in those dark areas.
Now, is there any advantage to trying to move that red peak back in with the other group?
It depends. Generally no, because this is RGB data that's been color calibrated. And if you do play with that, my experience is you tend to mess it up. So let me apply that black point and I'll show you what I mean. So now I'm going to reset this. I am going to reset it because I just applied the black point and I want to now see what I'm working with. So right now, if I turn the preview off and on, they look identical because I have a straight line from here to there. So let me just go to the red channel. And let me try shifting that. So right now, by moving that midpoint adjustment in the histogram, just like we learned before, that shifts the curve to the right. I'm going to reset it just to show you the difference. So if I were to align that, it actually becomes like way too red.
Yeah.
And part of that is because if you look at that red, even though it peaks, even though there's some dark reds in there, this is showing you how many dark red values there are. It's not showing you the intensity of the red. The intensity of the red is up here. Remember, on a histogram, intensity or level is the right side of the curve. It's showing you how many values there are. So that's the only thing that's indicating is that there are a lot of values that are in that darker value red. And if I were to put a cursor on this, let's find that darker value red. It's actually here. So let me zoom in on that little region. It's there. So there's red. Since this is an area of a lot of nebulosity, the background sky is red in that region. So see how dark that is?
Yeah.
And I think that's the important lesson here is exactly what is it telling you and how do you use that information to to make tweaks in a more intelligent manner or in a more predictable, controlled manner. If I were to bring the black point up, that's going to shift that curve to the left. It's going to make those values even darker. And not that you would do this, but if I were to bring the white point down, it's going to start clipping some of that red. Like right now, we're clipping red. If I put a cursor, yeah, so the red channel is at 1. You can
Wow.
see that red channel's at 1, the top number in that. Those are very, very clipped. Not that you would ever do that, just illustrating the point. So even here, I'm clipping now. If I go into this region here, those are clipped. There's a clipped red pixel there.
Huh.
So that's what curves is doing. So typically in this kind of situation, you want to leave them alone. Leave them locked as an RGB set because they were calibrated as an RGB set. So then some other stretching tools, and which we'll get into in a different meeting. And Steve, I'm happy to show if people are interested, I'm happy to just pull up the GHS tool while we're doing this. But I also want to allow time for show and tell. I don't want to go on too long. So
Yeah, no, I'm good.
okay.
Following
Yeah. So
along.
other stretching tools. So one that's been around for a long time is this ArcSine H, which is a hyperbolic arcsine kind of stretch that has just a couple parameters. This is the default in PixInsight. The stretch factor is 1, which is basically neutral, and then the black point 0. And in PixInsight, they have a little they have a couple check boxes where and in this case I'm using RGB data, so that I would have that on. You can also protect the highlights. It'll reduce any of the stretching up at the top, and then you can also estimate the black point. And if you estimate the black point, that'll give you kind of an offset by which the stretch occurs above that. And if you're doing that, if you're estimating the black point, I would be conservative with that. I typically back it a fair amount down. This is like a fine adjust slider, this one. I typically back it down because I want to make sure I'm not clipping the blacks. In Siril, I'm not sure if they have a black point estimator or a way to protect the highlights, but
GHS does. I don't know about. I don't think the A sign.
Yeah, GHS does. Yeah, that seems to be the more useful, I think, stretching mechanism now. So this is GHS, Siril, and PixInsight, and they have very, very similar parameters. There's a stretch factor. There's a local intensity, the symmetry point. You can protect your shadows. You can protect your highlights. Same thing here. Stretch factor, local symmetry point, shadows, highlights. And we'll go into that in a future session if that's good with everybody.
Yeah.
Okay. And then as far as resources, I can drop these in the chat window if that's easier for people, if you want to take a screenshot. Screenshots are a little hard because there's underscores in here, and PowerPoint automatically puts a line on hyperlinks. So these are actually underscores in these what look like spaces. So all those spaces, if you were to copy paste it, it would work. But if you're doing a screenshot, keep in mind that where there's a space, it's actually an underscore. And that's it.
Thank you.
Harry.
Very good.
Yeah, very
Gary, that
good.
was great stuff. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Quick
you-
question,
Gary?
Gary.
Yes.
Because I'm just getting started with the PixInsight stuff, and I'm old school when I used to do the Photoshop with the levels and curves.
Yeah.
And I was told, with the curve part, you should never go in a negative direction with the curve. Now, is that not true with PixInsight, and you just got to play around with it?
When you say negative, what do you mean?
Well, like when you pull in when you're making adjustments in your curves, like on levels, I was always taught that you move your black point towards, not right up to, like you were saying, to the end of where the histogram starts, but at least a little bit to the left of it. Then I would go into curves and make any adjustments with pulling up the curve, however I was going to adjust it. But they said not to allow the shape of the curve itself to go negative.
And by negative, you mean like below the
Right,
below this, like below this diagonal line.
right, exactly.
I mean, generally you're not, unless you're doing like a contrast adjustment. So if I wanted to improve the increase the contrast on this, I'm pulling this negative. I mean, it's still a positive value. I'm pulling it below the diagonal line, right? I'm pulling that down and I'm pushing that up. That's also increasing the contrast before, after.
But in the end, your curve really isn't showing a real negative for the most part. Yeah.
Andy, in Siril, they have an inverse hyperbolic stretch. And I mean, I use that on occasion, but one of the things that I find out is really difficult is you see the curve going up from left to right. If you have it to the point where it starts going down again, in other words, if you see at the right side, if you have it going up above the highest spot on the right side, then I think that's when you run into trouble.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
In other words,
it's
if
this-
you have one that looks like an upside down U, I think that's where you'll notice some really weird effects starting to happen.
Okay.
Yes. So if you look at this, you can see the artifact,
Right.
that posterization.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
If
I
I get
think
rid of
that's
that
what-
point, that goes away.
Right. I think that's what they mean. But if you had one that was like generalized, like down instead of up, like they're already in the generalized hyperbolic stretch, they're already in there as tools. For instance, if you had a background that you just had stars and you wanted the stars to look generally not as bright so as to not take over the image, if you were doing a star mask and whatever, you could use that and it would work quite well. But if you have a curve that's not going positive, in other words, if you have a slope that's going negative, I think that's where you run into trouble.
Yeah.
If it's less positive, going from left to right, that's fine. But if you have the slope actually going negative, I think that's where you run into issues.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Okay.
here the curve is below, the transfer curve is below the 1-to-1 curve, but it's still a positive slope.
Right. That the slope remains positive. You don't
Right,
want the slope to go negative.
Yeah.
Okay.
It may be less positive, but
So
it,
now
it, it should remain positive.
if I add a point here that gives you a negative slope because of that inflection point, you can see where the posterization comes in. You can see the artifact.
Okay.
It's
Got it.
basically, you saw what happened with this guy, with that bright section.
Yep.
It's the same thing as that. It's creating a halo. It's creating the effectively a halo. If I pull that down, you can see all that artifact. It's actually creating halos. So yeah, so not so much negative, but a negative slope. Sorry for not understanding it.
Okay. No, I got it now. Okay. I appreciate the help.
Yeah, so you can see that halo occurring. We're really messing this up.
Yeah, I'm saying you're turning your slope into a constellation. I mean,
How's
yeah.
that?
We can spend next meeting trying to get that back, you know?
So anyway, thank you. Any other questions?
Good job, Jack.
No question, but Steve's point is well taken. My first impulse was to get that red, green, and blue bell curve in the same spot. This clarifies it completely.
Yeah. You really if you I calibrate my data right after I do a gradient correction. So my first processing step is gradient correction and then color calibration. I calibrate it before I do anything because I want the histograms to be aligned correctly to one another, and then I don't touch the relative channels. Now that's not true if I'm doing monochrome. If I'm, shooting like false color, then it's kind of like sort of whatever you want to map it to a certain extent. But with RGB data, you generally want to calibrate it and then kind of keep it locked that way. So, and Steve, there was one other quick thing. Steve Haas last month when I was doing the M71 thing, processing example, he had mentioned about taking the screen transfer function or the in like PixInsight, the auto stretch, and dragging that into the histogram as a way to get an initial stretch. And I kind of said, no, don't do that. I kind of reacted strongly because that is actually a common way to do it. But depending on the image, it can cause a much greater effect. So first, I want to apologize to Steve publicly for I didn't mean to come on too strong. Like, no, don't go doing that, because that is a valid way. But if you do it with if you are going to do that, it can tend to work if you have a starless image and you're just trying to stretch real dark stuff like I'm doing with like the North American Nebula. That can work. But when you have stars in there, what'll wind up happening is if you're using the auto stretch, the stars are almost guaranteed to be blown out. So if you do want to use like an auto stretch and drag those parameters into your histogram, you can actually go into the auto stretch and kind of dial it back. You can zoom in on it and grab the sort of like the equivalent of the midtone slider and pull that away from the from the black slider, from the black point. And then you can do a mild stretch that way as a starting point. I tend to find that just opening up the histogram and pulling the slider over 2 or 3 times, sometimes 4 times, is a great start. And then you avoid all of that potential saturation of your stars and your brighter features. So sorry about that, Steve. So what do we have as far as, I know everybody's been posting images. Joe, your comment images were great. Steve, I'm assuming you have stuff from maybe from your remote setup, and anyone else who has some.
I think
some
Tom S
stuff to
had some live
share.
stuff going too.
What's that?
Tom S has some live stuff going too, he said.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah,
doing that.
just noticed
Let's
that
open
my
up the
image.
floor. Who wants to show us some stuff?
Yeah,
I
I'm
got
going to show us.
stuff. I'll show you some real quick things,
Okay.
if that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should, yeah, anyone should be able to share. So.
Okay. You guys see that?
Oh, yeah.
Lunar. Is that
Yeah, this
cheese?
is a source. This is, I put this in because of the Messier craters here.
SCAA.
Yeah, and that comet type. This is about a
Yeah.
17-day-old moon. It's 2.5 days, say, past full, and they show up pretty well there. But that's just that's one there. I don't know if
Yeah,
I
you
can.
really captured that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Tom's
I
mooning
put that
us.
in for you, Wink. I know you mentioned that at the store party about that.
Yeah.
Let me oh, let me see if I can.
Langranus, right?
Tom, is this
Lang-
with your Newtonian?
This is with the 10-inch because I was doing Saturn and the moon was up and I just kind of got it going there. And this is my lunar reconnaissance type picture. I like you guys can see this, I guess, right? You see the North Polar Cap?
It's still on the
On the moon.
first one.
Do you guys see it?
No, it's still
Still
sharing
the
the
same
first one.
image.
Let me go back and I'll I always screw
It's a
this up.
beautiful image, Tom.
Let me get you. I'm gonna stop sharing. I'm gonna start sharing again real quick here. I'm just gonna get this. I'll do it the right way. Maybe I'll do it the right way. Let me share the entire screen. Okay. You guys see my laptop here? I mean,
There it is.
Yeah.
We see them all, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
you see the North
Beautiful.
Polar region now?
Yes.
Mare Frigoris.
Yeah, right. And this was kind of neat. I like orienting the moon this way, so it looks like you're flying over it, you know. I forget the name of this crater, but it's named after a fella from a couple thousand years ago who uh, came up with the idea that the about the reflections off the moon and stuff. And there's Plato, of course. And uh, anyway, that's just a. Let's see if I can actually do this. Oh, gone. I thought I could. Well, there you go. You see that,
Yeah.
Saturn?
Yeah.
Okay. This is with a 6-inch. So this, I didn't have my 10-inch set up during the transits, but you can still get something with a 6-inch. Can you guys see that?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, that's with the 10-inch.
Hmm.
I'm not a big fan of making you guys see the sun?
Yep. It's
Yeah.
red.
Okay. I'm not a big fan of the really red problems like this, but I threw it in front of for grins. Sky Telescope had a guy doing this, and not a huge fan. I more prefer this style.
Hmm.
Beautiful.
Nice.
There's another one, and this is one that I couldn't do before. This is a GIF. If you look closely here, I'll see if I zoom in a little.
Yeah, it's moving.
A question.
Yeah.
Why is the limb brighter than more perpendicular shot of the surface?
Oh, well, this is an inverted. I've inverted the sun so that the
it's a-
limb is darker, becomes lighter.
It's a negative.
Yeah, basically. But it gives the filaments more of a 3D effect. And you can see, if you look here, you can see this filament disappears. There's a little bit of motion in here. Down here, there's some stuff here going on.
Yeah.
But you get this little guy shooting up. But the cool thing is this guy floating here. He floated there for about a day. And you can see the material going down from it, you know. It's kind of neat. It's kind of a pretty time.
Weird.
And
Now, is that considered the solar rain thing like you did in one of your other shots?
that sort of is actually, but not quite. I mean, because it is and it's not. The solar coronal rain thing there was nothing there, and all of a sudden up high it appeared. Now this may have started as it may have just condensed and appeared. I'm not sure because it was already there when I looked at it. It was already out there. So I don't know if it just appeared there or it detached.
Hmm.
But
What would be the time base of this?
this is about, I got it on top there, I think. It's from 10:19 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. So it's about 3.5 hours-ish. But anyway,
Huh.
and then I mentioned real quick, I think Tad's gone, but this is just an idea.
Huh.
Jumped the gun there. This is from Valley Forge. This is 18.5 minutes at Valley Forge with a C star. But when you process it, you can get a fair amount out of it.
Yeah.
And even though it's only 18.5 minutes.
Hmm.
So anyway, that is it.
Yeah.
And I will stop sharing here, stop hogging.
No, thank you.
There we go.
Hey,
Really nice, Tom. Really
Thanks.
great.
Hey, can
Really
I
great.
share something? John?
Yeah, go for it. You said you have limited time. Saturn went behind a pole.
Yeah, let's see, what do I share?
Green up arrow at the bottom of your screen.
Bottom of my screen. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Share.
It's coming. Hey, I see Saturn wiggling.
Oh
There
man,
we
live
are.
view. That's cool.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah, so I'm sitting in my room here, and the telescope is outside, and
Huh.
How is that possible?
I am like
Yeah, that's cool.
my dream is to do this
Yeah.
at night, and I can just focus here, can move the mount,
Hmm.
and I can do live stacking. Oh, it's overexposed, so I can just turn down the exposure a little bit. I'll stop it. But there it is.
Yeah, you
Live
can do
stack.
this is something interesting that SharpCap put in is this kind of a freeze image, and you can sharpen it on a live image.
Yeah, so it's doing
It's
like a
good for demos.
continuous 7,000 frames and stacking them and filtering and dropping some of the old ones and picking up the new ones, and you can just adjust
Yeah.
live
Huh.
sharpening, and you can save where you want it, and then you come back and return, and I can make it a region of interest a little bit smaller, so you get the bigger image. Where is that? I can go down here like something like this.
It's faster than. Yeah.
And try to focus here a little bit. I have
And Tom, when it's doing that live stacking sharpening, it's still storing just the raw AVI file.
yeah, you can do
Or
afterwards.
not AVI, but I guess you're doing SCR.
SCR.
Yeah, you can afterwards. You can mess with it, and you can see I have an ADC that I haven't put in this in the in there because I don't know how to use it yet. I mean, I've looked at the videos, but so you can see it suffering from the color.
What is your gain and exposure there, Tom? Slide back
It's
up there.
it's doing 6 milliseconds, so it's about 150 frames a second on the bottom. You can see,
What's your
That's not bad.
and my exposure is
go up?
it's
What's your
one over that, right?
6 milliseconds, and your gain is 440. You get that gain crank, baby.
I can go down a little bit, yeah. I don't know but that's an absolute number, but 1/662 is 150 frames a second. So when you do that rate, you can see every once in a while the image jumps in nicely.
Yeah, you can really see it.
And if you start stacking,
One thing on the right, do you see the white balance on the camera
Yeah.
control?
Kind of.
It's at the bottom. Go down.
Okay.
There it is. You went past it. It's at the top now. There.
There you go.
Yeah.
So I turned those off of auto. So click the auto, turn it, or actually, you're okay. I set them both to
Sorry, guys.
50.
Oh, so it's off right now.
Yeah. One thing I learned is if you save data, that gets saved in the file. So if it's messed up now, it's messed up forever. So I always set those to 50, 50, and never touch them.
Okay.
But that's just me personally.
55 and 0.
Both should be 5-0. 50 is the middle for a ZWO camera. So I set them on 50 and leave it. But that's only if I'm saving the data to process later. If you want to play with it to look at it, that's up to you.
Okay, yeah, it seems like it's kind of yellow. Is that how it should be? See how it's yellow? I don't know if you see it on your screen, but I see
Yeah,
it
It did
kinda-
change
yeah,
the
it looks
color.
yellowy green.
so if
Yeah,
I
You,
put
you
it,
could scroll back down to your histogram. Leave them there.
oh, I just bumped it to auto. I went to 51.
It's changing by its own. Yeah. So I never use auto. I always leave it 50 and then I sort it out later. But that's just me.
then you white balance it later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about the
I-
histogram?
Yeah, I think I leave it in auto, but I always white balance afterwards anyway, so.
You can see your peaks there. On that, like the blue's a little farther forward. So that's your
How,
white balance.
how do you fix? Oh, so how do I fix that?
Put an
Oh, I guess
ADC in.
okay, put an AC. Okay.
That
Yeah,
just stacks.
I went to this flea market thing and I picked up an ADC from ZW, and they're
It's
really cheap.
unbelievable on
So
the flea market.
yeah, I went to the New Jersey Astronomy,
Oh yeah, well that one, yeah, that's a
and I picked up a camera and that,
yeah.
and so I haven't. I'm just happy that I can just set up the telescope, sharp cap pole, align it, hook up everything, and
Are you
find
on
the
an
image.
yeah. Are you
Find
on an out azimuth, Tom? Or an
equatorial.
Equatorial. Okay. So you'll have yeah, I mean that's
It's an 8-inch from Bob Mediri that I bought a year ago or so.
yeah. No,
I mean,
it's better for sure, but you have to kind of keep adjusting
yeah,
the ADC, and you got to kind of get it. You got to get it. The key is to get the neutral position parallel to your true horizon.
yeah. So that would require me to go outside.
Wait, yeah, it does. That requires me. Yeah, I go out, I fiddle with it, I get the values good, I go back in, I go out 25
Well,
minutes later, I tweak it again.
so we need to have that automated somehow. Come on, guys.
Yeah,
An automated
Yeah.
one.
you could
Agoraphobic
if they
people
were
don't buy
had
them.
enough of they're a little stiff, those arms.
Can you
Yeah,
not?
it is a
Can you
bit
just?
of a kind of monkey on your shoulder.
Can you
I like
correct?
using it, but I tell you, I like when if the planet's high and you don't have to use it.
Yeah, I woke up this morning and I saw Jupiter like way right over my head. I said, "Oh, okay, well, I need
Yeah,
to
the
wake up."
ADC, yeah, it does minimal at that point. So that's the thing. Jupiter's going to be high for like now in a couple of years, and Saturn's getting higher. So it's if you wait enough where it's like above like 45, 50 degrees above the horizon, it's minimal
It's sell
effect.
your ADC and then buy it back.
Yeah.
No, I got a really good deal. It's like third of the price that you see advertised.
Oh, that's pretty good.
I also got a
That's pretty
guide
cool.
scope to do the pole alignment. So I'm slowly assembling my skills. But this is like the second time I managed to, like Joe was telling me, forget about this flip mirror. Real men don't use flip mirrors. You just go align it up.
I did not say it like that.
No, I'm quoting Arnold
Sounds
Schwarzenegger.
like Joe.
I think
Arnold
it's
No, what I said
Schwarzenegger
was, are you a man or a mouse? No, I didn't even say that. I'm gonna say I didn't say any of that.
No, it's just
Uh-oh.
quoting Arnold Schwarzenegger in his old days. But yeah,
That's
so
great, Tom.
Yeah, it's
But
fun.
I'm
Yeah, it's
anxious,
cool.
anxious to see what you post with that.
Yeah, it's real stable. It's real nice.
Yeah.
yeah,
know,
you
he-
saw it's being central. I have one thing I haven't figured out how to guide it. On the planet, somehow the directions don't seem to make sense. So I'm centering it just by moving the region here and it's clicking here. That's why it's so steady. Otherwise, I think I have. When I align with the little small telescope on the mount itself, and then I take it off and then I put the OTA. Invariably, I'm probably bumping it. So there's a slight drift. So it would be nice if I could figure out how to use the guiding. But I'm not sure this mount is probably not that great. When I move it, it kind of jumps around all over the place. So I don't know.
Well,
if you
Tom
can
had
set it
that
up.
scope up at Valley Forge on Saturday night, and we got a beautiful view of Saturn through it. really is a really nice scope.
Yeah.
Really is.
Yeah, there are a couple images published in the October workshop. So, well, I think you guys saw the Saturn. That I basically did it this way, but I waited much later when it was really high. So, and it was just lucky, not lucky images. I think I took 25,000 frames.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rather be lucky than good.
At 150 frames a second, that's not bad. The camera.
Yeah.
I must be the
Yeah.
limit of.
You have to buy another hard drive.
Yeah.
It's a great
Yeah,
scope,
that's a
though.
great frame.
Really is. Beautiful
No,
images.
I have
through it.
I have a computer hanging on the tripod, so it's it's not doing anything else but that. So this is just
Nice.
remote monitoring, remote desktop that I'm connecting.
Oh
to.
yeah, yeah.
So
Hey, Gary and John, thanks a lot. I might be back, but thank you.
You're welcome, Nelson.
night.
Thanks. Good luck with good luck. Keep going with that guiding.
Yeah, dinner and then I'll suit up for outside tonight.
Okay.
yeah,
That's
it's
all.
beautiful outside.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's all I had. Sure,
Thanks,
show
Tom.
off a little bit here.
That's cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
Hey,
I had
John,
a quick question.
about your comet pictures from Texas. What exposure? How long were you doing your subs for on that?
For me?
Yeah.
Oh,
Joe Lamb.
I'm sorry. 2 minutes.
2 minute subs.
And they were used about 30 individual frames. And I had to whale the time. I have to find a different way to process them. I was doing it in Deep Sky Stacker, and I had a lot of difficulty with artifacts. And what I was doing, I was trying with different combinations of images, to try to get it right. But I need to really work on my technique for that. It was really time consuming to do it.
Comets
But
are never. They're always more. They're always more trouble than other stuff.
yeah, they were tricky, Anyway, but thanks. Yeah.
So they were 2 minutes because it seemed some of the ones I think what Mark and Dan McCauley were doing were like 3 minutes, which tells me since it's so far away, it's not moving that fast compared to like blurring with those
Right.
longer subs. So you can get more of
Right.
the tail, more of that,
Yeah.
the kind of area around the coma to show up with those longer subs. So you were at 2 minutes, they were at 3 minutes. So same kind of ballpark.
Yeah. Yeah. Now I was shooting it
Some
at
of them, if you go above
5.6.
like a minute, they'll start to smear.
Right.
Yeah, some are really
Right.
tough.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a
So
nice image, Tom.
it's really nice. Beautiful.
Let's see. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. There it is. Yeah. That's pretty. They're really getting the rings are really getting close to being edge on again. They dip a little bit in. I guess it's like the second week in December. They're kind
Yeah.
of not
Or-
quite online like they were in March, but they get really close. Then they
Yeah, there was
start to open up.
Yeah, beginning of September, I think it was about a little over 2 degrees, and by the end, it was supposed to be 1.5 degrees because we're going through this little cycle here.
Yeah.
It keeps going down. I think it goes down to about a half a degree, so about a third of this. So it's going to be really fine, and then it starts increasing. And by the time we get around to next year's fall star parties at Valley Forge, you'll be able to see them a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
see Cassini's.
What else do we have in terms of new images or stuff people is working on?
Yeah.
Steve,
I had
have
a
you gotten anything
question.
from your Texas setup yet?
Who?
Yeah, no.
Oh, me or Joe?
You. Yeah, Joe
Mm.
had the comments. Yeah, you had your a sea star down there or something.
Yeah, I can show a couple from that.
And then I think Scott's got a question.
I'd be interested to knowing how you set up the Sea Star down there.
Well, what I did was I had it all set up. Well, I bought the C Star from them because they had a stock down there. But I have a 50 here. They had 30s down there. So they're the same thing. So I used a Mac Mini computer because they'll talk directly to the C Star. And so I got that all set up here and then sent the computer and a CASA power strip and sent that down. And then they like take care of the rest of it, unless you have a problem.
So the Mac Mini has the C Star application it runs?
Well, you use the iOS version of the
Oh, the app. Oh, okay. So an iPad would work.
not unless you use an emulator. There's
Oh, you
something
can't.
special about the Mac Mini that it will run the iOS version of the C Star directly.
Oh, okay. So it's like a
Now
VM
you
machine.
you could put like a regular PC down there and emulate with an emulator, but
Yeah,
it's just a cleaner setup with this Mac Mini.
yeah, I would think so. Those are pretty cheap. You don't need any power.
Yeah, that's $400-500.
Okay. And I noticed you had a camera that was watching the Sea Star. Is that right?
I have one, not everybody. I opted for that
Okay. So you
so
can
that I
see what
could see what it was doing. I mean, it's a pretty minimalist setup. Joe has a much more complicated setup than I do. But even at that, I've had a few issues that they had to get involved in as far as all of the connections working solidly over the internet. So anyways,
okay. So
you
it's
had
like
another
VPN
question?
connection.
Excuse me?
It's a
You gonna
VPN
share it or-
connection.
Yeah, well, when I first had it down there, the Mac Mini was communicating with the C Star directly wirelessly, which it can do. And I was having problems where I was seeing other people's subs and I couldn't find mine. So really what you're supposed to do, and they didn't tell me this in the beginning, was to put C Star in station mode and connect to their network directly. And of course, they have to give you the password for that. And then you have the Mac Mini, which is connected directly to their network, and the C Star, which is connected directly to the network. And it seems to be working better since we made that change.
So it's hardwired.
Yeah. Well, the C Star is plugged in constantly into power. So it's wireless to their network.
Oh.
The Mac Mini is direct connected, wired to their network.
You can remotely power it up and down and all that stuff.
You can with a CASA power strip.
Okay.
You can do it from your phone.
Yeah, I
but
use those at home. Yeah.
the other problem is with the C Star, if you shut it off, you can't turn it back on because you have to now travel down to Texas and press a button.
I thought they had those things. They have push
Yeah,
buttons.
so you have to, put a ticket in, and a day and a half later, they'll go turn it back on. But they make these little push button bots,
remote.
right? Which I'm going to send one of those down so that so you can control it with one of those little push bots.
You wireless, you remote control the push button. It actually pushes the button. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've seen those. Yeah. So a little bit complicated.
So it's the simplest setup and the cheapest setup, but then again, anything can go wrong. And I've had some startup pains, but I think I'm there now. And I know Joe has gone through some startup issues too. But so let me show you a couple pictures, and if you got any more questions. Now, keep in mind, this is just a tiny little telescope. It's not going to compare to, you know, what you get from a larger. Let me,
There it is.
you see?
Wow.
So
Nice.
this is the M8 Lagoon. Let's see,
Wow, the
100.
skies are good there.
Yeah, they are. And that's the whole point. Even with a little telescope, you can have a lot of fun with it.
Wow. Yeah, that's impressive.
Is this processed or directly off of the machine?
So what I prefer to do is to not use the live stacking method. I'm just collecting subs, downloading them, processing in PixInsight, and I do an Uber smooth on them and maybe a little bit of Lightroom tweak. So here we got the Eagle.
See the
Not too
hand.
bad. So this could have been framed better and I could get more time on it, but again, it's not all that bad.
Nice.
Nice.
Yeah.
Is this with the S50 or 30? Which did you
30.
say?
This is a 30.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's amazing. The 30 millimeter aperture.
Yeah.
Wow.
This is pinwheel. Now on some of these, I'm using 10-second subs on some 20-second subs. Also, I'm switching in and out that if the C-Star doesn't do it automatically, then you can switch between the IR cut and the other filter, which is a somewhat narrow band filter. The other thing that I've also found that improves, I think, improves the output a little bit is in PixInsight, I do a 2x drizzle
Yeah.
because the original picture is so undersampled that the drizzle helps.
Yeah.
Can this be put on equatorial mode?
Yes, I'm also going to send a wedge down
Oh, okay,
so that I could then use the equatorial mode.
cool.
Oh, hey.
Pac-Man.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So again, not
Very
too
nice.
bad for a little 30 millimeter.
I think it's amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Here's the
Yay.
silver sliver.
Look at
Got the
891.
dust line.
Now this is interesting. I don't know what to think of this. This is NGC 6820, and all they call it is an emission nebula. Can't find any name for it. I've got 3 nights
Excuse
on
me.
this for a total of 8 hours. And I'm not sure if I'm looking at garbage or, you know.
Where's it at, Steve? What constellation? You know?
Yeah, I knew you were going to ask me
I'm
that.
pulling it up. 6820. It's in Vulpecca, right off of M27.
Oh, okay. It's up high. Yeah.
So I don't know. Does anybody know what it is really?
I never saw.
6820. Right next door, there's a star cluster, NGC 6823, which might be in there.
I think it's
Oh,
in
that's in
there.
there.
Yeah.
Might be embedded, yeah.
But it does have
That's
like a
probably
little
right there.
elephant
You can
trunk.
kind of see something in that little darker area on the left, lower left, sort of the orange. Right in up there, up a little over there. Go to the right a little bit. Right in there, yeah. I wonder if that's it.
Yeah.
Yep, that's the star cluster. The little fingers pointing at it, the little elephant.
Yeah,
You're
yeah,
pointing
that's
at-
what yeah.
Yeah,
That's what I thought. Yeah, it looks like a cluster.
that's it. It's a 6823. That's a cool spot.
It is.
Very nice.
Yeah,
yeah.
somebody
Interesting.
with a much larger setup, I'd be interested in seeing what that.
Somebody who has like an Ashguard down in Texas, maybe.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, if we
If only we
only
knew
knew-
somebody.
If we only knew somebody, right?
Have the same view.
Oh
So
boy.
Crescent.
here's my potato.
Oh yeah.
That's great.
Beautiful.
And fireworks.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Now, coming up, this is
Oh, look at that.
this,
Nice
this
veil.
is interesting
Beautiful.
because this is a mosaic, and I've got just 60 minutes on this when everything went to hell and I couldn't get any more time on it. But even at that, I really like this image, even though I'm missing a lot of nebulosity. For 60
A big field
minutes,
of view there. Yeah.
Yeah.
For that.
and the mosaic
Pickering's
image is
triangle and
not very big, and so there's quite a few of them.
That's beautiful.
yeah.
That is really great.
Again, it's not it's not full. It's missing a lot, but I still like it.
Yeah, that's cool.
You get the two farther ends
East
of
and
it.
west
Yeah,
veils and the Pickering triangle and
and this is a stupid 30 millimeter, and I mean, look at this. I mean, there's detail there.
Yeah, amazing.
Really nice.
Let's see, a couple more.
That's great.
So this is just one image. Well, this is cropped in, obviously.
the
Born
monkey
has
claw.
30, but and
Whoa.
Iris.
Iris.
the iris.
Yeah.
Some of that dark contrast.
Yeah, it's a nice field of view with that, with the getting the dust in there and stuff.
That's
Yeah.
spooky. I like that.
Yeah. And last one here, the wizard.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Now the stars came out weird looking, flat and grayish. I don't know why, but I just stopped at that point anyways.
It always has a neat look. I like the softness of the wizard.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Just
Yeah.
looks so smooth all the time. It's really cool. Nice job, Steve.
good.
That's
Very
great. So it's
good.
working
Nice,
out well
Steve.
for you.
Yeah, more images this time than I have all year.
Really nice,
Great.
Steve.
Well done.
Really nice.
All right, what are we? Oh, there it is.
Beautiful, yeah.
So it gives me a lot to do just from where I'm sitting right here.
Yeah.
A lot of, collection time and a lot of processing time, and with, my physical condition isn't that great, so I really can't go to dark sites.
Yeah.
So this gives me a nice little option, and my aspirations are to see how good of an image I can get with, better processing techniques. So what Gary went through today is really going to help me out towards that goal. So thank you, Gary.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
All right,
Great, Steve.
that's all I got.
Good job.
Very good.
Nice.
Nice job. Anything else from anyone
Yeah, I got
before we
something.
wrap up?
The Scott? Yeah.
Scott.
So, I borrowed the club solar scope, and I haven't had a chance to really process anything. I just had the ASI Air stack it, and it doesn't really come out too well with it here. But using the solar scope visually was amazing in itself with it. But I haven't done any real stacking with it, so I only have the two images with it. The question I have is, how do you view AVI files? Like, what application uses to view AVI?
You would, I mean, you probably would want to select SCR, and you're gonna shoot the movie. These are individual frames, Scott?
No, the ASI stacked like one
It's-
video of it, and this was the output.
Yeah.
But I mean, ASI Air doesn't have SCR as an option. It only has AVI as the
Well,
option.
you can stack I mean, the auto stacker will do AVI also.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
you'll do
if-
SCR or AVI.
Right, yeah, I guess I have a bunch of AVI files, but I can't view them to show what the video looks like.
Yeah, it'd be good to get the actual AVI and then bring it through auto stacker and
Okay.
and go through that way. I think you'll
If you want a simple AVI player just to like preview the thumbnails,
Yeah.
I dropped a link in. VLC plays everything everywhere.
Yeah,
My
VLC plays a little
VLC
better.
doesn't work. That's what I thought.
What?
But here, I'll let you.
I think
I think
VLC will
Windows-
not do SER files. Right?
There's,
Yeah,
I have VLC player.
I think
And-
doesn't Microsoft come with a video?
Yeah,
That's what I thought as well, but
I mean, because that's what I use. I mean,
yeah, no, that's what I thought. But if I just drop it in here, it says that it's playing it, but I get no playback.
well, that's weird.
So I'm not crazy. VLC should do it. So there's something.
yeah, you
but
get weird files. I don't know.
I mean, these are all right off the ASI Air, and I mean, none of them
Huh.
play for
See,
some reason.
What was your frame rate with that, Scott?
I don't remember if I recorded it or not.
I don't think you'll get. I don't know if you'll get a high enough frame rate without using something that's like a Windows based, like a Fire Capture or a Sharp Cap, where you
I
can.
mean, I was only using a ZWO 120 camera, but I cropped it down, and I forget what the exact frame rate was. Unfortunately, it doesn't actually say in any of the
What is the
data.
pixel size on that, Scott?
I don't know.
No.
I don't remember all that. I don't remember all those. Yeah, frame rate's 100 frames per second.
No, that's
Yeah.
good.
So kind of, I mean, depending on which way, like I had some of them where I didn't zoom in. And I think some of them, yeah, some of them only are like 22 frames per second because it was the first time I had really ever used that camera to do any video stuff with it. So it was kind of testing it out, baking in
Oh
the
yeah,
sun.
it's a little different world. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I at least got it to see, but now I've got to learn how to process it. So,
Is that your first time using a solar scope visually as well?
Successfully. I tried to use the Daystar a while ago, but as Joe knows, it's been acting up. So I got it when it was acting up, but I wasn't able to like use it. So, but I borrowed the new scope, and tried it out, and it was amazing with it and
Yeah, I thought it was
everything.
pretty
So,
good. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, I have videos of it with the different filter, different length of it as I was able to do it. So I want to process all the images and see the next steps. So
Did the ASI Air save the AVI file?
yeah,
You have Okay, you have that. Okay, that's good. Well,
yeah, I mean these are
right, 'cause
all
you're trying to play it. Yeah, right.
Yeah, these are all the
So,
AVI files and
yeah, run that through AutoStacker and
Yeah.
then run it through
Registax.
run it through Registax. Try to don't go too heavy-handed with that. But you'll see if when you start, you'll know right away where you're
yeah,
at.
I don't have either one of those installed. I think they were on my laptop. So I'll give that a try, and then next steps after that to see what happens.
You should be able to. I'm looking at some AVI files from an ASI Air that I did a test, and they're opening up in the Windows Photo Player. They're not debayered. It's just showing the raw. And they're not opening in the VLC player. But
I mean, even if I try to open
opening,
in,
they are opening in the Windows, just the Windows Photo app.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. That's what I.
Yeah. But what Tom's saying is the way I process it too. I just use AutoStacker, drop them right into that. And they're from the ASI Air. It handled that fine.
I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I'll process it, but that's what I thought. I'm like, I thought API files should be able to be played, so.
Yeah.
And if you're downloading software, Scott, like AutoStacker and Registax, I would download IMPPG too, because I tend to. There you go.
I don't know what, like, this is an old image. This is one that I took.
Looks.
I don't know why it's doing that though.
Yeah, it's really jumping.
Something's not synchronized with it, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure what telescope that's actually like. I don't know what that's actually through.
It looks like a white light filter.
Or clouds coming through. What is it?
There's probably clouds and out of focus, but I mean, that might be through the Celestron, the Next R6.
Hey, you got a white light filter for that?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's what it looks like. It looks like there's sunspots.
Yeah, I mean that's from
The clouds
that's
go
from
inside the
2023,
sunspots.
so but I'll give it a try and go from there. Because those are working. I don't know why the other ones aren't working then. So, okay, I'll give it a try.
Yeah.
Oh wait, there we go. Now so these are the new ones. So that was just the sunspots with it and everything. It's funny, there is some like there are satellites that go across the image. If you look really carefully, I noticed that. There's one up over here. Yeah, there's one right there, and there's another one that'll come streaking across.
Hmm.
There you go.
Right.
Even a nuisance in the daytime.
Yeah. I did not go and try to track down which satellite
Give
that
us no
was.
rest.
Makes my solar panel output less power.
There we go. That's the actual
Okay, there you
promenade.
go. Yeah.
Very nice.
So Tom, how do you tell if the scope's in focus or not?
I look at the screen when I'm focusing. No, I
Man.
mean, literally, that's what I do. I mean, I've looked online. People do all kinds of things. People bring up, they really jack up the histogram to get real high contrast and do all kinds of things. They, just like Gary was showing with the histogram with the white point and the black point, they do all kinds of stuff. I find it, what I focus on, I pick an area close to an active region, but not the active region itself I look at. I look at close to it, and there's those fine lines that go across the sun. I'm not trying to focus on a prominence or anything like that. I'm trying to focus on the fine lines that come around the active regions because they're pretty fine and they're there only when you're pretty close to focus. So you move it in and they'll come out and then they kind of go away. And I zoom in quite a bit. I mean, I zoom in. I put it on as high as it'll tolerate for the seeing, but usually like at least 200x. I mean, versus the typical you're looking at it as like 100 or less. And 200. If it's a good day, I'll put the 300 and I'll focus at 300 or even 350. I'll just keep cranking it up till it's worse. It's harder to focus. But I
Right.
use the area next to those, and there's those fine things you see, like little hairs almost, but they're fatter than that. The but those areas seem easier to focus on.
Yeah, as you can tell, I was overexposed at
Yeah, but that's
times
okay
too.
for the
So
sun. That's a lot of times you might want to do that, especially if you have a bunch of faint problems.
right, and
Um,
that's partly what I was trying to go with was with some of the prominence
yeah.
to
But
be able to make
one
them.
thing good about that IMPPG program, which is pretty neat, that's the program that lets you do the inversions and stuff. But also because of that, I shoot it where I really can't see the problems. Unless it's really a bright problem, I barely can see it. But I'll shoot where it basically is. I'm looking at the histogram on sharp cap, and I'm bringing the, I'm, wa- I keep brightening it till I'm not saturating anything. I'm just shy of it, so I'm pretty far right. Because I know if I do that, I'm going to capture all this prominence data that I can't see at all. Bring an IMPPG, use curves, and I jack up the where it's dark, all the problems come out like crazy. And then if you bring the bright down all the way down, you get the inverted. And so the problems come out bright, and the image, the surface, we'll call it the surface, um, is inverted and
Mhm.
plenty bright enough to
And
fool.
then you use IMPG at the very end, like after you stack everything.
Yeah, you stack it
Okay.
just to get a TIFF file, say, and then you bring that file in IMPPG, and you can just because it sharpens in there too. I find that I like the sharpening in that better than Registacks. It's less harsh. It's a little more natural. You have more control over it. Does a deconvolution and does a Lucy Richardson thing too. I'm sorry, it does Lucy Richardson deconvolution, then it does like an unsharp mask. You can fiddle with the things and
All right,
But
I'll give it a try. I mean, I
yeah,
hadn't
the default
used
values
it in a
when you bring
while.
it when you get loaded are pretty good as far as that goes. Um I just you get as far as the sharpness goes, and then you can just play with the curves to bring out the problems on the surface thing.
What tool do you normally use to capture? Like you have
I use
a ZW,
SharpCap. I use SharpCap.
you just plug that into your ZWO
I'm
camera.
totally in the SharpCap thing. I do live stacking. I do everything I shoot, whether it's deep sky or the planets or the sun or the moon. I use SharpCap.
Okay. Yeah, I
I'm
mean,
just used to it.
ASI Air has the tools in it, but looking at SharpCap, I think it's got more. But I normally don't have my laptop out, but especially if I'm doing solo in the front yard,
SharpCap
it's
and Fire
easy.
Capture, as far as collecting those things, they have a lot more tools, and you can play with things more. And like if Tom bought that ADC, there's tools in both of those that let you tune it, so
Right.
you get rid of. So it has just a lot of nice things in it, um, which just help you out.
Okay. Well, I gotta get the scope back again to try it again. So
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it, though. That's good.
yeah, I mean, I only used it for the one day, but it was just kind of one of those spur of the moment of it's middle of the day and well, the sun's there, so go try it.
Yeah.
So
It's
Very cool.
just a quick update on the VLC player. I just downloaded the latest. I just did an update on my version.
yeah,
The ASI Air AVI files do play now on it.
Oh,
you
okay.
have what version do you have? 3020?
I don't know. I just downloaded it. Let me just check my downloads folder, see if it's on there. 3.021
Okay.
for 64-bit Windows.
Yeah, I just downloaded and it downloaded 3016, so maybe for some reason that one's outdated.
Yeah, I don't know. My previous version was probably over a year old, so it's pretty old. So I
I
just
mean, VLC's
downloaded it.
always normally been able to do it. That's why it was a bit odd that I'm like, I thought you could run it with
Yeah, it
VLC.
should. That's
So,
cool. Okay,
but now
anything else? We're getting kind of past time here, so we're about 15 minutes over.
Two quick ones I could show, but or not.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
please.
This is can you see it?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
That's an
This-
incredible shot.
Wow.
thanks. These are a couple of image and captured with fire capture, and then auto stacker and registack. So just typical. I shot this though at f40, so it's oversampled.
Wow.
It's really oversampled.
This is your
With a 174 and a red filter
and this is your
so-
C11
on the C11. Yeah.
F40.
So-
What's that? Jeez.
Wow. That's like
So
440 inches.
millimeter focal length.
Yeah, well, I'm shooting it with the 174, which is like what 5.86 micron pixels. So that would predict like f30 or so, I guess, for maximum. But I've been experimenting with this, and it seems to be working fairly well. But this is three craters: Theophilus, Catarina, and Cyrillus. And I thought the one on the left, which is Theophilus, was pretty cool. This is taken at sunset, and the central craters there are 1.4 miles high above the crater floor,
Yeah, look at
and
the
they're
shadows.
actually projecting the shadow like about 30
Yeah,
miles
look at those shadows. They're hitting
onto
the
the
wall.
onto the crater rim.
Yeah,
So the scene was really good that night. I don't know
it
how
had
it
to
would
be.
do typically, but I was kind of surprised with the result. So I might, try a few more of these once the moon gets a little bit higher.
Yeah,
This was shot past third quarter,
Amazing.
so it was high in the sky.
it's a beautiful shot.
Oh,
Really
thanks.
nice.
That's
Unbelievable.
Thank you.
fantastic.
Thank you. One thing about these craters, they're kind of a study in how craters age. The the one on the left, Theophilus is more or less pristine, and the other two get older as you go, and you can see how they gradually break down with subsequent impacts. So anyway, that was one. I don't know if the other one is even coming up. Let me see.
So Joe,
Yes.
on the moon, how many impacts are there these days? I mean, how active are the impacts?
I think more than we would think, I mean, there are probably millions of micro impacts, but probably few of the real large impacts, I'm going to have to stop this share. I'm really sorry. Let's see if I could try it again. There was one
Sometimes,
other.
Steve, I know during like the major showers, like the Perseids, and back in 25 years ago, I guess, when the landing meteors were really, there was a storm and we had, several thousand a night. People were watching the moon for impacts on the dark side, and a couple were recorded. You could actually see them hit. It was bright enough because it's a dark side. You could see it light up, But
I'll skip the other one. I don't know what happened to it. I had it ready to show and it kind of disappeared on me, and it is getting late. But yeah, so
that's an incredible
thanks.
detail, Joe. Man.
Thank you. Well, one of the things that I did on this that I don't normally do. Normally, when I'm operating at full frame, not a region of interest, I can only stack about 2,000 frames. And for some reason tonight, on that particular night, it stacked 10,000 frames. And I think that's why the image was better than normal, because usually
Yeah.
the computer just like kind of dies at 2,000 frames, because I'm not shooting region of interest. I'm shooting
It's full
an
sensor.
enormous. It's an enormous file. In fact, I shoot it onto. I don't shoot it on my main disk.
No,
I shoot it
I know.
onto.
You got I know.
Yeah, like it would just, and it took forever.
It's a 40 gig video or 50
Right.
gig video.
It took forever to go through.
Yeah.
Like auto stacker. I mean, I
How
think
many
it took
frames?
like an hour and a
How
half.
many frames did you actually keep? Is that a stack of
8%.
8%? So you had
And it's
10,000?
that low because when you look at the histogram, shooting at f40, most of the frames are going to show up lousy, and most of them did. So the ones that were above the middle line,
Yeah.
the 50% line, it was only 8% of them, and that's what I stacked.
But that's still a lot. That's 800 frames.
Right.
So you
Right.
got a lot of frames still.
Right. Yeah. So, and I think that's what allowed me to do it. The fact that I shot 10,000 of them.
Yeah, because it would take,
Wow.
Yeah.
It had to be a huge file. I made the mistake one time of doing it on my hard drive, and I was amazed how fast I ran out of space.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And on fire capture, like while it's capturing, I can see
You can watch it to go.
I can watch it.
It's like watching the fuel gauge.
It's like
going like this.
Yeah, it's like the final countdown, So yeah, but anyway, so I might experiment with that a little bit more and maybe try to get a couple and make a couple mosaics, once the moon gets a little bit better, it's so I would only try that if the moon was almost, directly overhead.
It's great though. Really nice work. Fantastic.
Yeah, thank you.
Really close up. Really nice.
Well, thank you, everyone. I'm going to wrap up now just because it's getting a little late. So, any pictures that didn't get shown this week, maybe this month, we could do next month. Yeah, I think I said that right.
That's great. Thank you, Gary and John.
Yeah.
Thank you both
very
much.
much. Thank you very much.
All right. Take care.